back to another special story in part of the Pop Story cycle. This is another one that I wrote, and it's about another one of the denizens that live in this living house. It's called The Curious Hamster. Kind of gives it away. The Curious Hamster. If we can turn the page. Alright. Pip lived in a large rectangular cage. There were many places to visit in his cage. He had different levels to climb up and over. There were brightly colored little houses where he made little rooms for himself. No matter where he went in his large rectangular cage, he could see the outside world. He wanted to explore the world outside of his cage. He wanted to share adventures with his person. His person was a little girl who fed him and played with him. She explained that he was a hamster, which he already knew, and she was a person. She introduced herself to him. The little girl who belonged to him was named Emma Grace. She would take him for trips throughout her home. Sometimes she held him in her hands. Other times he rode in a pocket. His far too brief times outside of the cage made him want to explore even more. He climbed up, down, and all around the cage, looking for a way to see more of the world around him. One day, after spending what seemed like an eternity to a little hamster like Pip, of climbing up, down, and side to sound, he found a little opening. He wiggled his nose out. He sniffed. He sniffed again. He did it 3 more times. It was different, he said to himself. The air outside felt different than the air inside his cage. Finally, he started to squeeze and push and squeeze and push and push and squeeze, and then pop! He was outside of the large rectangular cage with all the shelves meant for climbing and with the little houses meant for sleeping and keeping his toys. Pip, the curious hamster, was outside. As soon as he realized he was outside his large rectangular cage, he started to dance. He did the Pip, Curious Hamster dance. He did the Pip, Curious Hamster dance for several moments. He was very, very happy. Then he stopped dancing. I must start my adventure, he said, and with that he was off and running. He ran along the floor. He looked up. He saw a tall mountain covered in wood. He jumped as high as he could. He caught a bit of a strange stray branch. He climbed the branch until he was on top of the first hill. He peered about. He looked towards his large rectangular cage. No going back. He scurried to the edge. He spied another hill. He backed up. He jumped. He made it! He looked back again at the large rectangular cage. He was higher than his home in the large rectangular cage. He saw another hill. Once again he ran backwards and turned around. He ran straight into the next hill. He did this again and again and again. With a little climb, he was on top of the mountain. Once more he did the Pip, Curious Hamster dance. It should be noted that Pip liked to dance. He looked across the large land that was in front of the mountain. Pip saw interesting places to visit wherever he looked. He climbed down the mountain. It was much easier going down the mountain than climbing up the mountain. He found himself running across a soft, wide plain. He found a series of caves inside a big cave. Once outside of the caves, he found a wire playland. He climbed to the top and fell down until he hit something soft. He had grown tired while exploring. He lay there. He told himself he would not stay long. He stretched and woke after a long nap. It was dark. He started to become afraid. He started running, but he could not get back up the wire. Suddenly, he was being lifted up into the sky. Bright lights shone all about him. He heard strange voices. A large hand lifted him out of the wire playland. It was the people who his person belonged to. After looking at the large rectangular cage, they put him back inside. He crawled inside one of his tiny houses. It would not be so bad to fall asleep in the tiny house inside the large rectangular cage. Morning came and went. The afternoon sun found him still inside his little house. After all, it should be noted that exploring is tiresome work. He went back to sleep. When he opened his eyes, it was dark. Perfect. The perfect time to go exploring. He remembered what he had to do and where to go and get out of his large rectangular cage. Once again, he started to squeeze and push and squeeze and push and squeeze and push, and then pop! He was outside of the large rectangular cage with all the shelves meant for climbing and the little houses meant for sleeping and keeping his toys. He just wanted to see the world. It was not that he disliked the cage. He was just curious. Curiosity and being a hamster seemed to be things that went together. Once again he climbed up the hills to reach the top of the mountain. He was waiting for the morning light. He pointed at the horizon. See that far part off? He said to himself. Look at that light. Keep yourself fixed on it. Keep moving closer to it. And just as you get to the edge of the horizon will move again. You have that much more exploring to do. He looked down, back out to the horizon. Not a bad life, he said to himself. Pip Pip the Explorer. It had a good ring. These will be the stories that will be passed down. Others will find my writing. Perhaps I will have a boat. I may even find myself shipwrecked. Those who will follow may even find my writings hidden in the shipwreck, and they will say, what a brave hamster he was. He thought all of that as he stood looking out from the top of the wooden mountain. Turn the page, sometimes we get troubles. Pip Pip took a deep breath, looked out to the world before him, and said, a hamster's got to do what a hamster's got to do. With that, he was off on another adventure.